My name is Mama Kwala Pizzo, VisionAfric Lesotho. What we do at VisionAfric, just as an introduction, is to try to harmonize relationships between different stakeholders on a mission to promoting long-term development and prosperity in our own countries. If we want to make a difference in Africa, each of the countries have to make a difference in their own space. Now, where we are now as a VisionAfric Lesotho is to try to build collaboration and synergies with different actionable projects and solutions to help empower businesses to increase their reach, their revenue, and if we can also improve efficiencies and productivities to be self-sufficient, that will be for us sustainable. Then it will be a worthwhile program for us to venture into. Now, today we have the webinar to discuss market access opportunities in Kenya and the EAC. Our guest speaker today is Mr. Beru Lilako, Trade Policy Advisor from International Relations Society of Kenya. Over to you, Mr. Lilako. I think most of the job for today will be done by you. What do you have for us? So I'll hand over to you to take us through what you have planned for us.
Thank you, Mama, for that. It's an honor to be in the presence of fellow colleagues and also to be able to share snippets towards the integration aspect between Kenya, EAC, basically focusing on the EAC with a larger part of the continent. Here is the Rex. We are looking at SADC, we are looking at NEPA and SACU also, which I believe Lesotho is part of it, just to be able to see how the integration can be effective towards the same. So ideally, I can start by looking at just trying to see the whole aspect of the approach of looking at the activities and also issues which can be able to be helped towards doing a collaboration for the SMEs from the East Africa region towards the SADC REC. So here we are, part of the introduction on how I can just start is just to focus on it towards looking, as the topic is alluding, the unlocking of the potential market access, because here we are looking at value chain integration. So basically, it requires
oh, sorry, Mr. Lilako, are you able to put your screen on?
No, I'm having a problem with my laptop. So basically, if you can just highlight the screen from your side.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So as I was saying, like just trying to look at the infrastructure, the issues which will also be able to be touched on will be the regulatory frameworks, the technology adoption, and also the capacity building, which is very, very important, because ideally for the SMEs to be able to grow, they ought to be focused on capacity building. So on the first area will be enhancing our infrastructure and connectivity. Here we'll be looking at the transport and logistics, which are very, very important aspects towards improving integration. Because now, like number one is like improvement of roads and railways. For us to, if we are aware, colleagues, for effective integration to work, we know not everyone can afford air transport, which is very, very expensive. And again, even like when you are transporting goods via air, it's also quite expensive. So ideally, and you see the ratio of SMEs within the continent is very, very huge. And these are people, youth who are 35 and below of years. So if we can be able to improve the roads and the railways, whereby we enhance the road networks and the railway systems to facilitate smoother movement of goods within, I'll say within the EAC region towards beyond going to SADC and also COMESA. If we can have effective railway and also road networks, whereby there won't be any issue of requesting towards visa integration. So like now, if we catch that, it's much effective and efficient. Most goods will be able to be transported within the railway and the road, which is very efficient as compared to air and water. Then the port efficiency, whereby we need to upgrade and also modernize the key ports, like in Mombasa, which is now, it covers the larger part of the East Africa region. Here we are looking at, because a country like Uganda is a landlocked country. So you find that they are using Mombasa as a port to be able to relocate their goods from countries to countries. So like a goods, maybe for example, which it's supposed to pass through Rwanda, it has to pass through probably Uganda, Rwanda, all the way to Zambia. So now the whole port efficiency is very, very important. And also the air freight, the expansion of freight services to support the export and perishable goods, which are crucial for, like example, these agricultural producers. Like Kenya does export vegetables and flowers to Europe. And you also export, we have also started exporting the same towards Ghana. And this is towards the African Continental Free Trade Area, whereby the Graduate Trade Initiative, whereby countries can be able to trade amongst themselves. So now if we have effective air freight, because there's some goods which can't go through, they can't go via rail or road. These are perishable products. So basically we need to push and look towards air freight. On the energy, which is a very, very effective factor, the reliable power supply. Many African countries are struggling with the power outage. So now if the governments can be able to ensure consistent, affordable power supply to industrial zones, whereby it will be able to boost manufacturing and also processing capabilities. We are all aware there's no, out of the 55 countries in Africa, there's no any one country which can be able to develop if they don't have effective manufacturing capability. And for you as a country to have effective manufacturing capability, we need to have reliable power supply. Because now many African countries, even included here in Kenya, the power is very, very expensive. So now we need to switch towards reliable power supply. Then on the aspect of strengthening regional integration and trade facilitation, here we'll be looking at trade policies. We can look at harmonized regulations, whereby you align the trade regulations, standards, and also certificate processing within the EAC region, so as countries can reduce non-tariff barriers and streamline cross-border trade. By doing that, it helps whereby Rwandan SMEs can be able to interlink and trade with Ugandan SMEs. The SMEs from Burundi can trade and interlink with SMEs in South Sudan. So now it now removes the tariffs towards regulating and having harmonized integration at the borders. On the customs cooperation, hereby we'll be looking at implementation of non-stop border post, which is very important. It helps towards exhibiting custom procedures and reduces delays. Because you all know, if we have effective customs procedures, it's much better and efficient for traders to be able to pass from country to country. On the free trade agreements, the expansion of market access, which is very important because now it leverages on existing agreements such as the CFTA, which I believe all of us should be aware of that. The CFTA purpose is to open up new markets and to create larger economies, whereby those SMEs in Lesotho can be able to trade with SMEs in Kenya without any drawbacks, without any barriers in between. Because now we all come from probably, if for example, if we share our one custom union, COMESA, or if there's a link between SADC, which is part of it, and EAC, which also Kenya is part of it. So they need to have that effective trade agreement integration. On adaptation of the digital technology and also innovation, which is very important, we look at the digital platforms, the EAC, which rather the e-commerce, which promotes platforms to connect producers with buyers directly. Now, whereby you find that with the introduction of e-commerce, it's much efficient. So some SMEs can be able to do their trading online. You can transact and do your marketing from your house, from your comfort of your house. Now it helps you to reduce the whole hassle of walking from point A to point B. So, and also towards the blockchain for traceability, whereby the blockchain is coming up, which is a technology which is used to enhance traceability in supply chains, and it ensures product quality, and also it boosts customer confidence. This is still a new thing in Africa, but I see with the protocol of digital trade under the CFTA, it's very, very effective and important for the SMEs to be adversant with that. On the agri-tech solutions, we also look towards smart agriculture, whereby we do know agriculture is a pillar stone towards Africa as a continent, because we have a huge population, which by 2050 it will have surpassed China, it will have surpassed India. And I see by that, and we ought to remember the AU vision is 2063, and we are almost clocking vision 2030. These are the SDGs. Almost, I think, 6 years to 2030. And you see, we haven't yet formalized what are the deliberation of the SDGs. You know, let's reduce poverty. We know COVID happened, then it kind of killed all the supply chain channels. Let's have effective and efficient energy. So where now we focus on agriculture, whereby let's no African citizen go hungry. We need to push and focus on smart agriculture. So as also stop in terms, because we do import a lot of agricultural products. A good example is during COVID, wheat, which was actually even during the Russia-Ukraine war, wheat, which now is a major supply chain towards African region. We are getting our wheat from Ukraine, but now we realize with the war, the supply chain was blocked. So we need to focus more on agricultural, smart agriculture, whereby to be able to implement precision farming technologies to increase productivity and also to reduce waste. Mobile apps for farmers, which develop also distribution through mobile applications towards accessing market prices. Development of human capital and capacity building. As I was saying earlier, this is very important because now, like what you're doing today, training programs, skill management, and development, whereby we invest in vocational training in educational programs. Let SMEs be aware of what's happening. Let them be aware of the new tools happening in their regions. Entrepreneurship support, very, very important. They offer towards training of mentorship programs, whereby you're able to support and foster innovation and business growth towards entrepreneurs, which is very, very effective. The institutional support, there's the capacity building for SMEs, whereby it provides small SMEs through grants advisory services. So here I'll advocate for all the SMEs in each and every region to work with I believe the chambers of commerce for each country. Some countries have the private sector association, women in manufacturing, or the manufacturing association in each and every different region, and also traders. Let's say, for example, cross-border traders group, whereby now when you form those groups and association, it's much easier because now you'll be having one voice. So if you need to work on an issue, then you need to engage the government. It's easier rather whereby you are individual, but now once you are in that association, it's much effective. So it also helps towards the institutional support. Towards the promotion of sustainable practice, we look at the sustainable development, eco-friendly techniques, whereby it encourages the adoption of sustainable farming practices. We also look at certification programs, whereby it implements certification programs for organic and also fair trade products to cater for niche markets. We need to be looking at growing our organic food. We should stop highlighting, rather focusing on the GMOs. And that's why personally, I'm a bit scared because now the US, if you guys are aware of the AGOA, the Africa Growth Act, it will be expiring next year, September. But the Congress in the US are trying to push for that to be extended till 2041. That's a scary part because now you see, when that happens, there'll be much of dumping for products. If I can use two examples, textile industry, we need to start growing our own sisal as a continent. We should start making our own clothes. Because you see, like in Kenya, we get products from the UK. These are called the second-hand clothes, also known as mitumba. So now when you get these clothes from the UK or Europe, they kill the local manufacturing industry because now the young SMEs can't grow sisal, and then they can't get to be able to manufacture local made production. The same with agriculture. We need to push for organic production, rather focusing on the GMOs and the importing of agricultural products. The circular economy, wastage management, which by basically looking at developing systems for efficient waste management to recycle value chains towards environmental footprint. Towards leveraging on the financial inclusion and investments, access to finance, that's a key, very, very important. I know many SMEs are having a problem towards accessing to finance. If you're looking at the microfinance and credit facilities, many banks shy away towards giving loans, credit to SMEs, because the problem is the SMEs are looked upon as risk averse. That has to change. Because if I did a study around 2 years ago towards cross-border value chains, and these were many SMEs. And funny enough, majority of them are owned by youth and women. And the statistics, even at the revenue authorities for each country, when they're collecting taxes, they usually ignore those cross-border traders because they're perceived as informal. But now, what we don't know, these informal traders are the ones who are growing the economy in terms of, you find young women who have young families, they support their families through cross-border trading. So once we expand the access to credit and financial services to the small farmers and SMEs as a whole, we enable investments and productivity. And now the growth of that region will be able to be efficient and very productive. Then number two, on the public and private partnership, fostering of public-private partnership, very, very important. It helps to mobilize investments in critical infrastructure and also value chain development. So the government need to work with the private sector, very, very important, because the private sector are the ones who are doing the trading. not the government. We need to get that right. The government doesn't trade. The government only creates conducive environment. Then us, the private sector, the SMEs, the traders, we are the ones who are trading. So if we don't have efficient environment, then it will be difficult for the private sector to trade. So now there ought to be harmonized partnership and collaboration between the public and the private sector. On the foster of public-private collaboration, we look at industry clusters. We can look at the agribusiness cluster, whereby it establishes agribusiness cluster to foster collaboration among farmers, marketers, etc. Innovation hubs, very, very important. When you create these hubs, the businesses and academia and the government, they can be able to work together. Like a good example is here. In Kenya, we have around almost more than 50, I think more than 200 business hubs, innovation hubs. Now, they kind of help the young people. When they leave high school, when they leave college, you find people that tend to be creative. And that minimizes the aspect of trying to look for opportunities and prospects. So we can also leverage this towards beyond the EAC region. Even when we are going towards, for example, do collaboration with the Lesotho SMEs. Why not? Because now here we are looking at digital trade, and the innovation hubs will be able to create e-commerce, whereby not everything will be online. Then if you look at the policy dialogue, very important and key, the stakeholders engagements, whereby they engage through cross-border value chain identity, be able to challenge and also create solutions. Very, very effective. Then on the second topic, I looked at the market linkages. So here I was looking at the export potential and trade agreements. We ought to know the export is very important, especially for the African countries, because if we have forgotten the statistics, but the trade statistics for intra-African trade, whereby African countries trading amongst themselves is very poor compared to African countries trading with the US, trading with the UK, EU, and China. So you find we get our products from China. We get containers, we go to Dubai to get our products. But why not Ethiopian SMEs go and work with SMEs from Zimbabwe? Why not we do our production that way? Why not do the whole intra-African trade? So I think now the market linkages whereby we discover the export potential. Key is number one, tea exports. And here I gave an example of Kenya, whereby towards tea and coffee, Kenya leads in terms of exporting tea and coffee. And these commodities have significant demand in the market, such as EU, US, and the Middle East. We take our tea to Pakistan. We take our tea to UK. We take our flowers to Netherlands. But Kenya doesn't take its tea to Lesotho. Why is that? Since the AU was started, almost 60 years plus after independence, why not we do trade among ourselves? So, and that's why now the African Continental Free Trade Area comes in. Last year, October, we took our first tea to Ghana, through the Great Initiative. But it has taken us more than 60 plus years to realize we can trade our tea with our fellow African members, So the whole aspect of doing intra-African trade is very, very important. On the horticultural products, flowers, which are fruits, vegetables, and major exports, more or less are also taken to EU. So also that's what we need to look how to shift that paradigm and see, can we trade with our fellow African members? Emerging opportunities of avocados and macadamia. Up to 2 years ago, we didn't know as a country we could have exported avocados to China, to Europe, and Korea. But up to now, I think being being the highest exporter of avocados within the region, and also because now we do export also macadamia. I think now on macadamia, I think it's only Kenya and South Africa which exports macadamia outside Africa. We're taking this to Europe, but why not have linkages towards exporting the same within the regional? Processed food value chain products which are cane fruits. I think that's more self-explanatory. Then on the manufactured goods, yeah, there. Key export is textile and apparel, whereby it benefits the AGOA, that's the African Growth and Opportunity Act, which is supposed to be extended to 2041. It's expiring next year in September. So the exports, and which now it focuses most on exports, textile and apparel, mainly to the US, because that's the AGOA is basically the US agreement with the African countries. Then on the building of materials and chemicals to have a regional demand in the neighboring EAC countries and also beyond. Emerging opportunities on pharmaceutical, whereby look at the increase of local production and also electronics assembly, which is not very, very important. So why not to start having our local assembly within the region? I know Egypt is doing this, South Africa is doing the same, Algeria is also doing the same. So why all those cars which are being assembled in the continent, we need to have that mentality. We consume our own products. So I think it also look aspect of political goodwill from our head of states. On the service sector, which is very, very key, because African countries, for the growth to be effective and for us to surpass because now you see Africa has been surpassed with the Industrial Revolution. We are still on the second Industrial Revolution, yet the world is almost clocking the fourth Industrial Revolution. So service sector will be able to help. And the service sector comes within the e-commerce. Here you're looking at the ICT service, which is very, very effective if we have effective infrastructure which supports the software development and mobile applications, like the story of M-Pesa. Then we have tourism, which basically it's a service export and it attracts visitors within the world. Emerging opportunities are within that service sectors where we are looking at business processing services. There's a growing demand towards that, particularly from the Western countries, and also the financial service, whereby Nairobi has positioned itself as a hub which offers opportunities in banking and service financial services. And ideally, guys, if I can just talk a little bit from in the financial service, I think it just propelled because the M-Pesa, which was launched in 2008 in Nairobi. So from that aspect, now it just grew. And you can imagine it was just a one mobile application from an individual who decided to partner with the government. Then the application worked. Now you find initially it was very difficult for you to transact money to maybe to your mother in the village or your grandparents or relatives. But now each and every Kenyan has an M-Pesa. Be it you're having a feature phone or a smartphone. You can transact money from point A to point B within the country. And even those old people know how to use it. So you can see the whole aspect of having an effective financial service. Then on the trade agreements, which are very important because now they leverage on the regional global partnerships. Here we are looking at the EAC, whereby EAC is a custom union which facilitates the meaning of a customs union, it means it has to facilitate free trade within the member states, and the EAC has 8 countries. There were 6 initially, but Congo and Somali just joined, and Ethiopia will be also joining because they distributed the instruments of agreement to join the member states. Then we have the common market, which also allows free movement of goods, service, and labor, and also capital. So the CFTA mandate is to be a common market, whereby me in Nairobi, I can come to Maseru without any problem, without having to be asked, do you have visa? You know, even this issue of we're just doing the whole passport because for the sake of security. But you see, for the region within EAC, you don't need to use your visa or even passport. You just use your ID. It should be the same case within other RECs, COMESA, the same, or SADC. So now we also head towards having a harmonized common market, because we can't trade if there is no effective movement of people. Just trading happens because of human beings. And if human beings can't move effectively without any problems, then the trading have a problem. Infrastructure projects, which are joint initiatives like Northern Corridor integration, that's from Ethiopia towards all the way to Rwanda. On the common markets for Eastern and Southern Africa, that's COMESA, we have trade liberalization, which offers preferential rates among member states. And it's also very important for us to be aware what trade liberalization means. The whole aspect of having a trade facilitation, which simplifies the custom procedures and reduces non-tariff barriers, you know, at the borders. So it's very effective for the SMEs to be aware, and that's why no capacity building comes in. Knowledge management. You need to be aware, if I'm taking my products from point A to point B at the border, what requirements, what documents am I required to have? You know, that's very, very important. On the continental and global trade agreements, here we are looking at the CFTA, which is a market access effective. It creates a single continental market of 55 African states, because Eritrea is the only country which has not signed, but the entire 54 countries in the continent have already signed. 47 have ratified, 17 are yet to ratify. Then we have the trade reduction, which it helps towards eliminating tariffs, 90% of goods to be reduced. That's under the tariff offers. Also on the African Growth Act, AGOA, that's US market access, whereby the members of the African countries which are part of the AGOA, they access AGOA duty-free exports, you see. But there's also some issues in terms of the benefiting sectors like textile, apparel, if you're looking at agriculture, because they haven't completed the rules of origin. So it might also kill the manufacturing and also the agribusiness sectors are within the continent. On the EPA, this is the agreement between EU and the continent, whereby it facilitates duty-free and quota-free access to the EU market from the EAC region. So here I was looking at the EU and EAC. EU is a market of 27 countries from Europe. And now the agreement of the EAC, those are eight countries are within the eastern part of the continent. So when we have that agreement, how beneficial will it be to the other RECs, COMESA and SADC? Because again, the RECs should, my take has always been, if Kenya cannot trade with Uganda, you know, if Lesotho cannot trade with Zambia, it will be very difficult for Lesotho to trade with Ghana, because Ghana is in the ECAS. and Lesotho is in the SADC. So we need to trade with your neighbors first. So the regs need to work. For the CFTA to be effective and to be implemented, the regs have to work, and charity begins at home. I need to trade my neighbors first before I trade with the other people who are far away from my side. Looking at the bilateral trade agreements, these are like for China, India, and other countries. On the strategies to enhance market linkages and export potential, the market research and intelligence is very, very important, whereby here we conduct market studies to identify demands and trends. If you guys want to trade with the EAC region, you need to know what are the products which are required in the EAC region. So as you don't come and flock the market, you need to know, will this product be accepted? So basically just doing effective market research intelligence. Capacity building and standards compliance, whereby you need to provide training to export procedures, know what the requirement mandates to, like if you engage your export promotion agencies in your country, you get to know what are the requirements do I need to have for me to export beyond my country. Improving the capacity procedures for exporters, very, very effective. Do I need this? What do I need for me to be able to export? For you to export, you need to have a document which is known as Certificate of Origin. That document is offered by chambers of commerce, like for the case of Kenya. Some countries, they are being offered by the revenue authority of that country or the Ministry of Trade or the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So you need to know, what do I need, the specific documents I have for me to be able to export. Then if the next one is infrastructure development, which is more or less investing in transportation and logistics to reduce cost of improving efficiency. Policy regulatory support, streamlining export procedures, and also to reduce the bureaucratic hurdles. We provide incentives for exporters, very, very important, like tax breaks, subsidies. That comes from the government. Policy issues are basically from the government. And that will only happen if you push as an association, export promotion association, business association, women in trade, that way. Because when you're many and the group is bigger, the government can be able to hear you effectively. But if you go alone, it might be very, very hard. So very, very important to adhere to that. Financial access, just to be able to enhance access to support financial credit facilities and support the SMEs to obtain funding, which is very, very important. The other topic, the next topic was looking at value chain integration. Textiles, because here was covering textiles, apparel, cosmetics, and also agricultural products. Those are very, very key. From the research I did 2 years ago, these cosmetics, textile, apparel, and agricultural products came as a key product for the SMEs. And here, these were like around 20 countries. So you find all these SMEs are very, 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 very alluded and inclined towards these areas. And if you can start with the textile and apparel, the opportunities, the ones I can say within the EAC region, we are looking at regional integration and trade agreements, whereby the EAC has already established a common market protocol, which is very key, which it allows free movement of goods and services and labor, So all the members within the EAC region can move if harmonized within the region without any problem being asked about the visa and also the passport, which now to be able to leverage and enhance trade within the members. Now you see, when you remove the trade barriers, is like the visa, remove the passport, we have many SMEs who will be trading. We have many Burundians, we have many Rwandans in Nairobi, and we have many Kenyans in Tanzania. We have many Ugandans in South Sudan, you see. So all that happens because there's a harmonized common market, it reduces the trade barriers. But no, when you don't have that, you find you're required to pay for the visa, you're required to pay for the passport, which now you find not everyone has the money to do that. So it's again, because now here we're looking at SMEs. If you look at the SMEs GDP, it's quite low. These are small businesses who are still growing, So very, very important to look at that. Value addition and processing, very important. Just invest in local processing, cotton and other raw materials, which now will be able to help towards integration, developing a robust value chain for raw materials and production, and also finish their garments to reduce dependency. We have been getting our accessories from India and China. We need to start pushing for the growth of the textile industry in the country, because in the 80s we used to export. It's funny. In the 80s we used to export our clothes to China and India, and even UK. But now we're importing our clothes from those countries. Why? Because our textile production is very low. So the government creates incentives to be able to push for the SMEs to grow textile within the country. The production of value addition is very, very key and important. On the sustainable and ethical fashion, that's basically the growing global demand for production of textile, invest in sustainable practices, and also to attract premium of markets. Towards technology and innovation, especially the adoption of modern manufacturing technologies, because now we are moving towards AI. So we need to be more tech savvy, able to be innovative, So here we are looking at digital platforms which are able to enhance market access and so forth. Now, towards the challenges, the problem now has been the high cost of production and competition from cheap imports. You see, so even if we are looking at growing our textile in the country, then you start producing. There are those who are doing that. I see very many women who have their own companies for textile. But when you go and buy, you ask when you go and ask the price of those are local homemade clothes. They are way expensive. If you look at the cheap imports, the clothes we get from China, the second-hand clothes we get from Europe, they are way cheaper. And if you ask just ask like a random Kenyan, why do you choose to buy a product which is imported, and why can't you support your fellow citizen towards their production? The answer is the local is expensive, which makes sense for anyone, you see. So we need to look in terms of how do we cut costs, how do we reduce the production cost, the cost of electricity, the cost of all these materials which are being imported. So how do you reduce that? The need of improved infrastructure and logistics, very important. You see, like probably when you import, there's a tax which comes with that, you need to pay. And lately the government has been imposing extra taxes. These are custom taxes, very, very key. Limited access to finances for small SMEs. We spoke about that. So there ought to be effective inclusion of SMEs towards being given credit and also grants for financing their businesses. Towards number 2 is cosmetics. We looked at the opportunities which are natural and organic products. Kenya and the EAC have a rich diversity of natural resources that can be utilized in cosmetics, such as shea butter, aloe vera, and essentials. So when you guys want to venture in the EAC, those are the key production under the cosmetics: shea butter, aloe vera, and also essential oils. The global trend towards natural organic products, it presents, I think, a good niche for the region. On the regional market growth, we are seeing some rises on disposal of incomes and urbanization within the region, whereby it drives demand for personal care products. Having tailor-made production for local preference and skin types. This is very, very key. On the local manufacturing and branding, very, very important, because now we need to encourage local production. I'm a champion of encouraging local production, which now it can be able to reduce cost and increase competitiveness. When you have within the region, when you have other countries competing with the same product, that makes the competitive to be effective, and it also reduces the price. Also, the key of building strong local brands, very, very key. And let's support local brands. I see. I know for any African, when you hear of Gucci, when you hear of Adidas, when you hear of those highly branded companies, you feel like, yes, that's a thing, but you need to support local brands. That's very key. Export potential, basically to revenue agreements for the safety for the production. Now the challenges come towards regulatory of barriers and need of compliance in the international standards, competition from established global brands. Now the problem is when we have that competition from the already established global brands, it becomes a challenge. So again, is that aspect of buy Africa, build Africa. For that to work, we need to be serious and need to be effective, whereby you buy what you buy and you own Africa. If we do that, we are around 1.2 billion people. I think we'll be able to support our brands. And that's how now growth will be effective. And also, there's also limited research in development. This is very key because there's not much research being done in the continent apparently. The problem is funding. If I can challenge you guys, even if in your own country, same as even Kenya, we look at because now next month here we are going to the financial bill. The government will be giving the whole bill of the finance for the 2024 to 25 financial year. Now, if you look at the key of research, the funding is very limited. And you see, for us to have effective research development in the continent, we need to fund that. So basically, that's for the head of states, rather than the governments, to be able to effectively look into that. When you go into the agricultural products, this is I'd spoken about this earlier. Just the diversification of value chain addition, promoting value added processing of the products, developing agro-processing industries, export markets. Kenya and the EAC can capitalize in the international market for specialty like tea, coffee, horticultural, and flowers. Compliance with international standards are very, very important because here looking at are in the global market. Regional food security, whereby we strengthen the intra-EAC trade, which can be able to improve food security because we've been having floods for the last few weeks. Kenya has been experiencing huge floods. And before that, we had drought. Now you find the same folks who suffered during the droughts are the same folks who again are suffering during the floods. Because now all the farmers who had grown their agricultural products, the floods just swept like the products. Like I can give an example. Like now, to access a tomato in the country is very expensive. Now we are looking at Tanzania to get our tomatoes because there is cheaper. But if you want to buy tomatoes now in the country, it's way, way expensive. Why? Because of the floods which swept now most of the production. And also now investment in logistics, very, very important, whereby I will have smoother trade flows. If you look at the agri-tech and innovation, I spoke about this, but just be able to effectively simulating utilization of agricultural technology, because now agriculture is the way to go. African continent has a huge population, and it's growing day by day. In Europe, in Asia, the population is reducing. You know, by 2050, Africa will be way many. I think 1.5 billion, 2.5 billion there will be way many compared to the Europe, US, and China combined. That ought to be scary. Why? There will be many people to feed. And you can't be looking at hunger as an issue. So we need to work on agriculture. And by doing that, to have sensitized innovations, which will be able to help our own people to grow our own food and to feed our own people. Very, very key. And we look at how climate change is affecting the sub-Saharan region. One of the challenges here, we are looking at the climate change. We are looking at the infrastructure deficits, access to finance, which are more or less the same. As I come to the conclusion on the last topic, I looked at the regional integration, very, very important, collaboration and partnership opportunities for SMEs. Because an SME in Kenya is the same as an SME in Lesotho. There's no difference, So when we have this integration, it helps in terms of knowing where do we go. Can we integrate? If me with my small business, I'm used to get my products in India and China, can I not get them in Lesotho, in Zambia, in Zimbabwe, in Botswana? What's limiting me? So, and the reflection on the EAC is a market access, like point number 1. Here, I was looking at the offers which are combined over 177 million people. Just providing SMEs that are providing access to larger customer base. Those are many people, Because now, if you look at actually, I think there's a mistake. It's not 147 million people. There should be more. Because now, if Ethiopia joins EAC, EAC will have a population of 8 countries. And that population will be more, almost equal to the US. So you see, we have a voice when you do that. Like recently, the Kenyan president was invited to the US for a state visit. But when he goes there, if he goes as an EAC bloc, we get, as a continent, we get more goodies and more bilateral agreements as compared to if it's only Kenya, US. You get the point? It ought to be US EAC. When you have Africa, Europe, we have Africa, China, we have Africa, US. Africa has 42 currencies in total. That's quite absurd. China has 1 currency. Europe has 1 currency. US the same. So if you are doing the trade with bilateral agreements, Africa, China, we work with 42 currencies against 1 currency. Africa, Europe, 1 currency, Europe, with Africa, 42. So if at the end of the day, even the deals, they are against our advantage. Because you can't trade with 42 currencies, then you tell me all these regions will have an effective integration. That will be very tricky to happen. And that's why I think with the PAPs, I don't know if you have heard about the PAPs, that's a Pan-African Payment Settlement System. It was formed by the Afrexim Bank and the CFT Secretariat just to be able to help to have included market access, so by you can be able to trade. To trade, because the key in trading is the currency. And if the currency is weak, because now, even if I ask you guys, a good example is, will you like me to give you, if I was to do a job, or if you do any job, will you want to be paid in dollars or your local currency? Most of us will say dollars. Why? Because of the high intensity of it, the high value. So for us to be able to achieve the Vision 2063 for the Africa Union, we need to push more within local production. On the regulatory and also harmonization is very key. Just able to harmonize the regulation and standards across member states, whereby here looking at things like a common market protocol, which now the common market protocol, it promotes free movement of goods and services, services and also labor and capital. I think I mentioned this earlier. On the infrastructure and development, just focusing on investments, projects, supporting policies for the EAC, looking at the African Development Bank, another financial support, access. Okay, now this is this topic was focusing on the areas of possible opportunities and also collaboration. And this is very key. Here we're looking at cross-border trade. SMEs can explore partnerships to leverage cross-border trade opportunities, such as joint ventures and distribution of agreements. Doesn't matter from which region, even if you're from SADC, ECOWAS, or COMESA, it's more or less the same. And also trying to do collaboration with the firms within the neighboring countries. On the technology and innovation, just collaboration on the same, agribusiness, agriculture, more or less the same. Just working on partnerships and also on the value chain production, which is very key. Tourism and hospitality, that's very important, because now you see like the EAC region boosts rich in cultural and natural attraction. SMEs can collaborate on the regional tourism and packages just to market and towards international tourists. Having joint ventures, investments, and hospitality infrastructure, looking at manufacturing and industrialization. Currently, many African countries don't focus on the industrial policy. For us to grow as a continent, we need to stop importing everything. We import toothpicks, we import things which can be manufactured locally. You know, for us to grow, and this is like a good benchmark with Europe. It took Europe more than 73 years for them to form the EU. But even up to now, we saw the other day, I think a few years ago, the UK left the EU. And even at the EU, we have those countries from Eastern Europe, they still feel like, you know, they're struggling. So like for us to have an effective integration, I initially believe for Africa to be very effective, because now we can say and tell our own stories. We need to have an effective industrial policy. By that now, be able to generate manufacturing production within the continent, whereby even these cars, we can still not even assemble, because now I know we're assembling, but you can still do everything here. You know, zinc is manufactured in Zambia. All this production, all these entities which are used in this car production in Germany, in Japan, in the US, they get those raw materials in Africa. So we have a say. And if only the government can say, let's have effective industrial policy. Now it helps, one, creation of job opportunities, whereby our young people will have employment. Then number two, sustainability within the continent. We can sustain our production and growth. So those are very key. Then looking at the financial services, just trying to collaborate, SMEs to be able to collaborate with the banks, with the microfinance, to be able to access credit, partnerships with the fintechs under the financial inclusion. Looking at the next one is on the educational training. We need to have joint programs for vocational training and skills development to enhance SMEs workforce. For SMEs to grow, we need to do trainings, very key. We need to be at par. The next innovation at hand, we need to be aware. If you look at these countries coming to set up their production in Africa, that tells you something. Last week the other week I had early this month, I guess, Google were setting up their production in South Africa. That's key. And now the world is going to the AI, artificial intelligence. You know, we need to have those skills. The ICT, we need to have those skills, whereby now we collaborate with the educational institutions, even those kids when they're still in the primary, let them have those skills, very key. So by the time they are clocking to graduate the university, they're already in a capacity to be aware of what they need to do. We have those installed skills within their systems, very, very key. Then on the environmental sustainability, just trying to focus on the partnerships, collaboration with the EAC, rather with the SMEs to require access to green funding. Now we know we are going environmental sustainability. Africa is being affected by climate change more than the other continents, and it's not a mistake, but now you see we are paying the largest price. So, and again, I'll recommend for SMEs to look in this area of environmental development, because now whereby we are going green, very, very key. If we can also use our energy, green energy, I think it's also Kenya is trying to work on that, whereby it will be cost effective for the manufacturing production, even for the power. The electricity is very expensive in Nairobi. But now you see, when you go green, you need to reduce and to cut costs at a way higher rate. Finally, my recommendations basically just looking at the EAC, which presents a dynamic environment for the SMEs to grow, expand through regional integration. Here we are going towards SADC, COMESA, and ECOWAS, and other RECs as a whole, you know. So, and also by leveraging on these opportunities, it also creates the collaboration access across various sectors. SMEs can enhance competitiveness, innovate, and contribute to overall economic development in the region. By building strong partnerships, participating in regional value chain developments, and taking advantage of supportive policies and infrastructure. We need to work together. You know, even if in Lesotho, try and work beyond your country. Try to realize what are those folks in the EAC doing? Those SMEs, your fellow SMEs in Kigali, what are they doing? Uganda. Because now you see, the world is a global village. So everything is the same. Like what I'm looking for might be the same as what you're looking for. So if we have that effective market, which is a common market under the CFTA, it's much effective for us to trade amongst ourselves. And when the government see that, now they try to reduce the barriers and give probably incentives through the business associations, the women in business boards, or organizations as extra. I think that was my last slide, and thank you for this opportunity.
Wow, that was great. Thank you so much. And if we were to maybe try summarize the takeaways from the presentation in short, basically, Kenya offers us Lesotho is a small country. There's a lot of opportunities we can gain in working together with and accessing the market access in Kenya and the EAC, and take into account the extension into the COMESA and ECOWAS aspects, and of course SADC as a whole, which is there in waiting. But I think some of the key elements that you took out and which are very important, which are an hindrance in some way, which we need to be working towards, is the infrastructure enhancements. Transport networks are quite key. I'm not sure how quick we can get to those, but we can certainly try to see what works in the current environment, just so that at least we get to have some movement and run away from the air services, while at the same time trying to improve them so that they're a little bit more efficient and become cheaper for us, especially when we look at agriculture, and which is quite perishable, right? And in this aspect, you also touched on a reliable and affordable power supply for manufacturing and processing. There's also elements around regional integration and strengthening thereof, which touched on harmonizing our trade regulations. And the AfCFTA is actually providing us that leverage to expand our markets. There's technology and innovation adoption, leveraging on e-commerce and blockchain for traceability, and implementing agri-tech solutions, basically. Then the important key element, which is the human capital development, which would then have to make us focus on vocational training and entrepreneurship support, especially getting institutional support for SMMEs. That will be critical. Then working towards sustainable practices as we look into the issues around eco-friendly farming techniques and certifications thereof, and areas around waste management systems, especially within the value chains. There's financial inclusion and investment, especially for smallholder farmers and small enterprises. And we can leverage on the infrastructure for public-private partnerships and the projects within the value chains and the collaborations thereof. The market linkages and export potential, we can't really say much about that. You touched on that quite elaborately, especially looking at the agricultural products, the manufactured goods, and the services that we can explore, especially focusing on the key exports like tea, coffee, textiles, and the ICT services, which most of our African youth are focusing on as we speak. Of course, also the value chain integration, so that we focus on local processing, especially for textile and apparel, and we need to be using our own products. That is very important. We have a lot of natural resources we can utilize for cosmetics. The next change as we promote the value addition, especially on the agricultural products. So there's a lot that we can do. There's a lot really, and the EAC is providing us a dynamic environment for the SMEs to grow if we can take that opportunity. So I think we have your contact on the screen for anybody that want to touch base with you. We are here in Lesotho. They can take advantage and get in contact with us, and we can try to see how we leverage the relationship that we have built so far. So thank you so much. And it was such a pleasure to have you here today. And I think we can open the floor to some of the participants that are here, but we'll stop recording. Or maybe not, so that we get to see record the sessions. So we can open the floor to the questions. I don't see any from the chats, so we allow them to raise hands if there's any. Otherwise, we would assume that everything has been clear. Ladies and gentlemen, you have the floor, and your mics are enabled.
Hello, everyone. We are here to attend this meeting. My question is, will you assist us to get this slide so that we can go back and study something from it?
We can certainly share those. And I see a comment.
You can share with them. We are happy to hear all that Nate point to us. And we will share the slides.
Thank you, May. We'll share the slides.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right. I don't think there are any more questions, Mr. Beru, and we can call it a day.
Okay.
We'll share the video, the streaming with the participants online. And if there are any questions, we'll certainly touch base and try to re-engage on those questions. But otherwise, we'll be happy to get together to forge this further and see what we can gain from it for our own SMMEs on both sides.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you Mama, for that. I'm looking forward to be of any support in whichever capacity. Just let me know. I'll appreciate I'll be happy to assist.
Thank you so much. Have a lovely day, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a lovely weekend ahead.
Bye.
Bye-bye.